Just when we thought our little boy Boba was gone, he came rushing out the pit into this super weird show. I honestly don't even know how to talk about the show without spoiling it, so full spoilers for the basically complete show that is The Book of Boba Fett Season 1. First off, we're just going to get into it, we're going to review every episode, and then we're going to kind of just talk about the show as a whole after that. This show easily has one of the weakest first few episodes I have ever seen. Like, in all honesty, I can't remember the last time I saw a show that started off as bad as this show has. The first episode, in my opinion, is extremely boring. Pretty much nothing happens that's relevant. Like, the first few episodes have small plot details and moments, but not enough to make them individual episodes. The second episode is honestly just more boring, irrelevant shit from the first episode. And then episode 3 does this just super weird, stupid bird scooter ass chase scene. At first, honestly, I thought it was like, it's so bad that it's good. Like, that's what was the purpose of this. But the more I watched it, I was like, it is so bad that it's good, but it's almost making another complete circle just being bad again. Like, it's just so, like, it just goes on for too long. It does too much. And it's trying to be super hyped up and it's super intense when it's pretty much the slowest scene I've ever seen in my life. I think SpongeBob has faster chase scenes than the Book of Boba Fett does. And when I was watching this episode, my mom walked in, and in all honesty, it would have been so much less embarrassing just to say it was porn instead of having to admit that this is the newest Star Wars show that I'm watching. It's just way more embarrassing than getting caught watching porn. So they also do this dumb go-go gadget dumb shit, which I'm out. Who allowed that? Episode 4 is honestly just more ass sweat. Maybe not as much, but it's still really bad. Extremely forgetful, and honestly almost makes me regret even watching this show or watching it weekly at least, just because you hype yourself up for one episode a week and it just always turns out to be bad. And being it's a Star Wars show, I kind of was holding out hope that the next one would be better, the next episode is going to be better, and it just wasn't. Episode 4 is just as weak as the first few. Now episode 5, The Return of the Mandalorian, is easily one of the best, if not the best episode in this whole show, and honestly makes this bird scooter dumpster fire look like a super expensive scooter that is in a luxury store, you know? And now I said this episode is easily one of the better episodes in this whole show, right? Now, this show, The Book of Boba Fett, is focused mainly on Boba Fett, or at least it should be, right? This episode doesn't have Boba Fett in it at all. Now, isn't it kind of awkward that in the Book of Boba Fett show, one of the best episodes is an episode that doesn't have our main character in it at all, right? Don't get ahead of yourself. We're gonna get into everything that has to do with why the show is so disappointing. Episode 6 is honestly just as good as episode 5, maybe even better because it has so much more shit going on than episode 5 does. We still, again, don't really see Boba Fett too much in episode 6. It's still pretty much focused on Mando, which is fine. I enjoy seeing Mandalorian. However, this is still, again, not his TV show. But anyways, again, I said spoiler alert, so I'm going to talk whatever the fuck I want to talk about. So if you don't like that, last chance to kind of skip off. But here we see Ahsoka, we see Grogu, or little Yoda baby boy, whatever. And we also see Luke Skywalker. Also, the CGI on Luke here is like extremely good, like way better than what it was in Mandalorian. I don't know if they just got it better this time or what's going on. And he actually even talks a little bit too. So in general, his whole performance of Luke and everything like that is just really, really good. It's honestly a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Now, episode 7 and the finale, the last episode of this season or series or whatever, has some really cool moments. We finally get a full-on Mandalorian Boba Fett team up, at least since the Mandalorian show when Boba Fett was introduced there. Or not introduced, but shown in there, you know? However, it is extremely frustrating because in episodes 1 through 4, Boba Fett gets extremely shit on every episode. Like, I'm talking, bro gets his ass beat constantly in the first 4 episodes. And so for this last final episode, for him and Mando to be teaming up together as if like they're on the same playing field, like they're equals or something, is just insane. Because in the Mandalorian episode, he does not get his ass beat for 4 episodes. He might get his ass beat and go on like a side quest for a whole episode, but he doesn't lose 4 episodes consistently against multiple different parties, you know? And in case I didn't mention it when I was reviewing each and every single episode, episodes 1 through 4, Boba Fett gets his ass licked, bro.
Not lick me!
He has no chance. He looks like an absolute buffoon in every single episode. There's not one episode where he looks like a competent fighter, or at least knows what he's doing. Not a single one. Now you might be saying, okay, the first 4 episodes are bad or just below average, whatever, but then the last 3 episodes are decent to at least good, right? And I'd agree with that. That's a pretty, good overarching statement. But 3 out of 7 is not a passing grade. So in my opinion, the show is completely and entirely below average in almost every way. Now, why is Boba Fett the worst show of the year? I am going to answer that question in terms of if it is the worst show of the year, but why is that the big question? Why is that the big thing that we're wondering here? And it's because this show does this weird thing where the show's biggest issue, again, the Book of Boba Fett show's biggest issue is that the worst parts of the show are with our main character, Boba Fett. And there's multiple reasons as to why Boba Fett as a character sucks here in his own show. However, one of the biggest and most simplest ways I can kind of explain it is that this show basically said, hey, you know Boba Fett, you know how he was in the movies, you know how he is in the comics, you know how he is in the video games, and you like him. You like the idea of Boba Fett, right? Well, we're just gonna fucking massacre him and just absolutely destroy what you know about him and just murder pretty much the idea of what we as fans know of Boba Fett and how he is as a character. Someone that's into Star Wars might say, hey, Boba Fett's a badass. Wrong. He is not a badass at all in the series. He's a complete clumsy fool almost every single episode. A Star Wars fan might say, hey, Boba Fett's a ruthless killer, right? Wrong. No, Boba Fett literally doesn't want to hurt a single fly in this whole show. Not to say he doesn't hurt people, but he definitely plays it super safe, especially for someone that's known as one of the most notorious bounty hunters in the galaxy. A Star Wars fan might say, hey, Boba Fett is one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy, right? Again, you're fucking wrong, because guess what? He repeatedly gets his ass, again, licked. He gets tossed around like a freaking rag doll pretty much on an episode to episode basis. He's constantly needing to be saved by Fennec and just anyone around him. He pretty much needs to get helped the entire show. He doesn't really do a single thing on his own. And then also, I don't know what the fuck happened. I don't know if this is the thing with the actor or the show or like what's going on. And I'm not trying to be rude and I'm not trying to be like shaming the actor that does this show or the actor of Boba Fett at all. I think he actually does a decent job for what he has, but the writing's ass. But anyways, I don't know why the fuck they gave him like the shiniest white teeth in the whole world. Like, it's so unsettling. I don't even want to look at it. It's just, I don't know why they're so bright. It's so weird. And it honestly just makes this whole Boba Fett showing his face thing that much more just like intense, because Boba Fett never showed his face in the movies or the comics or the video games, really. He never did. And in this show, he's pretty much exclusively not wearing his helmet a majority of the time. So majority of the time, I'm seeing this guy that I should never be able to see before, right? With his bright ass fucking teeth. It's just so jarring and I hate it. I hate it. It makes me so uncomfortable. And the only thing more uncomfortable than seeing his shiny ass white teeth all the time is literally seeing this dude's fucking face constantly. Again, as I said, he was majority of his career and his time in Star Wars, at least in the universe that we know, spent with his helmet on his head. So for him to randomly just kind of drop that act is just so weird. And I get it, he isn't a Mandalorian, so he's not all this is the way and shit, and that's fine. But still, the armor that he wears, it's still Mandalorian kind of armor, the Mandalorian vibe, and we obviously have the actual Mandalorian himself, and there's this whole vibe of not taking your armor off. That armor is sacred to you. It just feels so whack that he's constantly taking his helmet off, because it also takes away any intimidation he might have, because that's the huge thing with Mandalorian is you never see his face. You're always wondering what is the face he's making, what does he look like. There's a huge intimidation factor because you genuinely and generally don't know who you're dealing with because you literally can't see him. But Boba Fett has no problem showing you his dome and his teeth constantly throughout the whole show. It just lacks any sort of intimidation, especially for someone that's supposed to be like a mob boss, right? And that's the whole reason why he was so fucking cool in the movies, is because we never saw his face. He never showed any emotions or feelings. He hardly even freaking talked, dude. And that's what was so dope, is he had this super mysterious, elusive kind of vibe going on where you were kind of scared of him because you didn't know exactly what he was capable of doing. So once we see his face constantly, we see him get ragdolled pretty much every time he fights someone. We also never see him actually really hurt anyone for the most part. We lose a lot of what makes him cool and just a lot of what makes him an intimidating character in the Star Wars universe, which is kind of his whole existence and reasoning for existing, is to be an intimidation figure, almost a bounty hunter. You know, that's the whole thing, and now they're trying to change it. And that's kind of the main issue here too, is I don't blame the Boba Fett character. I don't blame the actor necessarily either, because they're just doing what they need to do. The character is just being the character that the writers are making him out to be. The actor is just acting how the writers want him to act, or directors or whatever. So the issue then, in my opinion, is just the writing. So if I had to blame someone for this show, it would honestly be the writers, which is so weird because a majority of the team that's writing and creating the show is the same people behind Mandalorian. I just don't understand how they could fuck up this show so badly. There's not a single string of episodes in Mandalorian that's as bad or even nearly as just forgettable as the first 4 in Boba Fett. You can kind of get the idea and the impression that the people behind the show either just have completely separate plans for the Boba Fett character, or they just at their hearts didn't understand what made him a cool character, at least to the audience and to the universe itself. And that's the thing is, this is obviously not the same Boba Fett character that we're used to and that we've seen constantly through other mediums. Disney is obviously taking the Boba Fett character and trying to manipulate and kind of mold him into a different kind of character that he's not meant to be, and honestly doesn't really suit well at all. We'll touch on what Disney's doing with this character in a second, but just keep that in your mind. They're trying to change him in a weird way that just doesn't make sense, so we'll get back to that. Back on topic with the writing, they constantly make Boba Fett like a joke. Like, he just isn't taken seriously by anyone in this whole show. He gets bitched so hard in this show that a whole ass other dude with better armor has to come in and save him because he can't even handle his own town that he's supposed to be taking over. Within a week of him taking over this town, he's basically lost all control anyways. Like, he's proven he's not a good leader or a mob boss or neighborhood patrol watch guy. He's horrible. He can't take care of anyone. And this is also what's so annoying, is that in the shows, movies, comics, everything, like I keep saying, Boba Fett was kind of like the muscle. He was the guy that would get the shit done for you if you didn't want to get your hands dirty. Now, when I said that Disney's trying to change this character, what I'm trying to say is I think they're trying to make him more of a hero. And I think them trying to do that inherently has to make him less generally of what Boba Fett is. Boba Fett is an intimidating figure. He is a killer. He is ruthless. He has pretty much no loyalty other than to himself and to the people that are willing to pay the most, right? That's a very big general statement. Obviously, you read the comics and you play the games, you know, it's a little bit more interesting than that, but that's a general overview of him, right? And they just want to strip away everything that makes him who he is to make him a good guy. I don't know if that's to make him more appealing for more movies or what, but I don't know why Disney, or at least the team behind the show, would try to change and manipulate this character and take away pretty much what makes his character themselves, instead of just making a new character, or instead of just actually trying to go through a huge development arc that would make sense and be meaningful, unlike this 4 little episode trash garbage fest that we got. And it's weird too, because they're not trying to make him like an anti-hero or someone that kind of good but generally is gonna be on the line of bad. They're legitimately just trying to make him like an overall great, outstanding, you know, student or whatever. So for them to turn this super lethal spy ass, bounty hunter ass dude into your friendly neighborhood Mandalorian guy is just so lame. And honestly, the thing is, I don't mind them trying to do that. I think you can definitely take a character and develop them and change their entire core of their character if it's done well, with time, with reasoning, and with actual effort. Here it's done over 4 episodes with some random ass backstory to spliced in while he's getting his ass beat, and it just feels so rushed and just so blah. It doesn't feel like there's any care or effort being taken at all with this character. I'm down for Boba Fett to change and become a complete good guy if that's what Disney wants to do with him, but they have to do it well, and here they did it extremely poorly, and it's extremely undercooked. And then they have these last 3 episodes that come in and try to tie everything together, but then it ties everything together in a super rushed, just half-assed job, because not only do we have to wrap up Mandalorian's story, who's a whole ass different character who's been introduced over halfway through the season, we have to wrap up his story and completely conclude at least what he's done in this show so we can move on to Mandalorian, you know, whatever next season, right? We also have to wrap up Boba Fett's story. We also have to wrap up all the other side characters that were introduced that mean nothing, because guess what? If we don't do that, then it's gonna look weird. So we have to wrap up everything, right? And this is also my issue, is that they wrap it up with Boba Fett's a good guy, cool, we're all good, like, boom, great, you know, high five, we dance at the end credit scene, whatever, right? They never address anything that actually happened to Boba Fett prior from this show. They never once address him falling to the Sarlacc pit, in terms of like, he's never seeking out revenge against Luke or Han or anyone in that group at all, which is really weird. Someone that's a bounty hunter, you think they would have maybe like, I don't know, a shit to give about being essentially almost murdered, right? He also shows very little to no remorse in terms of what he's done as a bounty hunter and the people he's killed and kind of the lives he's destroyed. I think that's also what would make this whole idea of him shifting into a good guy really, really interesting, is making him battle his demons, making him have to realize what he's done in the universe and the lives he's taken. It's just so annoying how they try to make him a good guy, but they don't use any of the actual stuff that's already developed in his character to kind of drive that story. They can totally use him being a bounty hunter and doing all this horrible things to people as a driving force in him to want to be a better person, but they don't. They ignore that completely again and just focus on what they're doing with him in this show. They don't try to really branch off to anything that he has done outside of the show, really. It just feels so forced having Boba Fett switch gears completely and motivations, really. Especially because if you remember, this show does not take place that much further than Return of the Jedi. So it hasn't been like 10 years or whatever, and he's grown and went through this huge development that we haven't seen. We literally see him at the end of Return of the Jedi and now. We basically see his whole story. So why he doesn't give a shit about hunting down the people that did him wrong, or why the fuck he doesn't care about, I don't know, anything. And like I said, I would be totally down to have a whole arc or multiple seasons dedicated to him being developed as a good good guy, developed as him repenting for what he's done. But it's just so frustrating how they completely just drop any sort of real development for him and try to shove it into 3 episodes that are all just really weak ass episodes. In my opinion, this show should have just been called Mandalorian and Friends or something. Literally almost half this show doesn't even bother to talk about Boba Fett in any real meaningful way. I just think it presenting itself as the book of Boba Fett season 1, the story of how he survived and all this shit, is extremely misleading because we don't really get any of that. He survives and then kind of gets over it and then moves on, right? Or even better, just call this shit Fennec saving Boba Fett the whole fucking show, because literally she spends the whole show saving his ass and doing all the cool badass shit that we would want Boba Fett to be doing, but instead she's doing it. And obviously that's the huge issue. The best parts about this show are the parts that don't even have our main character in it. I love Star Wars. I really wanted this show to be good. It had the same team behind Mandalorian on this show too. We had every reason to think that this show was going to be a home run, just like how Mandalorian kind of was. And at the very least, I think people just thought, hey, it's a new Disney Plus show, it's at least going to be decent, right? And I think overall, I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to say it's a decent show. It's a decent show. For me, this is a show in the below average or even below average range. It's easily the worst Disney Plus show that's come out, period. And it's even more aggravating when you look at what this show could have been. The team behind this show, they definitely create some amazing things, so why couldn't they do that here? And then the last 3 episodes being so good and kind of at least trying to tie the bow up for this show honestly just seems even more disappointing and disrespectful, because it's like, why weren't you doing that this whole time, right? Without a doubt, this is probably going to be going on as one of the most disappointing TV shows this year, and honestly probably disappointing TV shows I've seen in a long time. I just don't understand how they could drop the ball so hard on this show. I just hope this isn't the official roadmap for Boba Fett. I hope they at least try to go back and tackle more about his character, or at least try to develop him further in a way that makes sense for what they're trying to do with him. I do wish we could have gotten a better show than this, but we at least got 3 good to decent episodes. But damn, this show really needs to fix itself if it's going to be doing a season 2, or if it's going to go past what we have right now. So big question, is Boba Fett the worst show of the year? I don't think so. Like, there's a lot of technical issues, there's a lot of writing issues, there's even some directing issues with this show, but to call it the worst show this year, I mean, obviously that's the huge joke. We're in fucking February. Like, how am I gonna say this is the worst show this year? Come on, that's the whole fucking funny part about this. If you got mad about it, that's the joke, you know? But I can safely say that this is for sure the most disappointing thing I've seen so far up until February, but I'm pretty certain I'm not going to see anything as disappointing as this for the rest of the year. Is it the worst show of the year? Probably not, and I don't think it will be, but it's going to stay the most disappointing thing, at least for me. With that said, have you guys seen Boba Fett? What are your guys' overall thoughts on the show? How'd you feel about the ending? How'd you feel about the whole show, the first few episodes? How'd you feel about especially what they did with my boy? God bless his soul. God bless him, they butchered my boy. Go and like the video, subscribe. Thanks for your time. Appreciate you guys watching the whole video, and have a good one.